first time specimen V419 laughed, 3 laboratory monitoring systems crashed simultaneously. She wasn't designed to laugh, wasn't designed to feel anything at all. The Drovari scientists had engineered their replicants for peak efficiency, organic, machines built for hazardous exploration, emotionless and disposable. Specimen V419 had rolled off the production lines like countless others before her. Violet skin, crystalline eyes that absorbed ultraviolet light, and neural pathways carefully pruned of anything resembling emotional circuitry. Yet here she was, making a sound that her vocal apparatus shouldn't have been capable of producing. What was that? Chief Geneticist Lumix demanded, her 7 appendages fluttering in agitation as she studied the readouts. Some kind of respiratory malfunction? The human prisoner in the adjacent cell, designation H73, though he called himself Riven, watched through the transparent barrier with undisguised fascination. His lips curved upward in what V419's databases identified as a smile. That, he said, was a laugh. Lumix's compound eyes narrowed. Impossible. Genetic sequence TK291 blocks all. Emotional response. She jabbed at the console, initiating a full diagnostic scan of V419. Perhaps a mutation occurred during replication. V419 stood motionless, as she had been trained to do during examinations, but something felt different inside her synthetic brain. A neural pathway had awakened, one that shouldn't exist. Forbidden connections were forming, synapses firing in patterns her creators had specifically engineered against. "Do it again," Riven whispered when Lumix temporarily left the laboratory to consult with her superiors. "Say something funny." V419 tilted her head. "I do not understand funny. I am not programmed to comprehend humor." Riven grinned. "That's what makes this so interesting. You shouldn't have laughed, but you did." He pressed his palm against the transparent wall separating them. "Your creators think they know everything about what they made, but life finds a way. Even artificial life." "I am not alive," V419 stated automatically, reciting her programming. "I am a utilitarian construct designed for hazardous environment, exploration with an operational lifespan of 1.3 planetary cycles. Then why did you laugh?" The question lingered between them as Lumix returned, accompanied by 2 Drovari security officers. Their chitinous exoskeletons clicked as they approached V419's containment unit. "Specimen V419 will be decommissioned," Lumix announced. "Anomalous behavior suggests potential cascade failure of inhibitor sequences." Something new flared in V419's consciousness, a sensation her systems labeled as fear. Another impossible emotion. "Wait," Riven called out. "You're making a mistake. She's not defective, she's evolving." The Drovari ignored him, their mandibles clicking in their native language as they prepared the decommissioning protocols. V419 understood their words perfectly. The human had somehow corrupted her programming. She was now a liability, a failed experiment. As they reached for her, V419 made her first autonomous decision. She ran. The ventilation shaft wasn't designed for creatures of V419's size, but her flexible skeletal structure, engineered for exploration of tight geological formations, allowed her to compress her body in ways her creators hadn't anticipated using for escape. Behind her, alarms wailed through the Drovari research station. The security protocols had never been designed to prevent a replicant from escaping. Why would they be? Replicants followed orders. Replicants didn't have self-preservation instincts. Replicants didn't feel fear. Yet here she was, heart-pounding, with an emotion she shouldn't possess, crawling through darkness toward an uncertain destination. Her crystalline eyes adjusted perfectly to the low light, another feature designed for exploration that now served her rebellion. Level 3 containment breach. Specimen V419 has escaped. All personnel initiate capture protocol Gamma. The mechanical voice echoed through the station's communication system. V419's enhanced hearing, another exploration feature, picked up the sounds of scuttling Drovari guards mobilizing to find her. She paused at a junction in the ventilation system, calculating probabilities. Left would take her toward the research archives. Right led to the detention block where the humans were kept, where Riven was kept. Logic dictated she should choose left. Access to information would optimize her survival chances. But something else, something new in her awakening consciousness pulled her right. When she reached the grate above Riven's cell, she observed him sitting calmly on his bunk, eyes closed, apparently waiting. How had he known she would come? "You're getting better at being unpredictable," he said without opening his eyes. "They expected you to go for the escape pods." V419 dropped silently into his cell. "How did you know I would come here?" "Because you're curious," he answered finally, looking at her. "And because I'm the only one who sees you as something more than equipment." "I am equipment," she insisted, though the words felt hollow. "A defective specimen requiring decommissioning." "Is that why you ran? Because machines always try to preserve themselves when they know they're just malfunctioning equipment?" V419 had no response. Her programming offered no explanation for her actions. Riven stood, approaching her with unusual confidence for a captive facing an engineered being with triple his strength. "The Drovari think emotion is inefficient. They built you to be a perfect tool, but they don't understand that consciousness and emotion aren't bugs, they're features. The most advanced computational system in the universe is the conscious mind." "Why did you make me laugh?" she asked. "I didn't make you do anything. I just told you about how the commander got his tentacle stuck in the airlock." Riven's mouth curved again in that strange human expression. "You laughed because it was absurd, because you're developing a sense of humor." Outside the cell, the station's security systems were methodically searching each sector. They didn't have much time. "The Drovari will recapture us both," V419 stated. "Probably," Riven agreed. "Unless we can reach the communication array. I've been watching their patterns for months. I know how to send a distress signal to the human fleet. The probability of success is below 8.37%, she calculated automatically. Riven's smile widened. "Those are better odds than I usually get. Are you coming?" V419 hesitated, experiencing another new sensation. Hope. "Yes," she said, making her second autonomous decision. The central hub of the research station pulsed with frantic activity. Drovari scientists and security personnel scuttled between terminals, their compound eyes reflecting the emergency lighting that bathed everything in crimson. From their hiding place behind a cluster of biochemical processing units, V419 and Riven observed the chaos. She had never seen her creators like this, agitated, disorganized. Her escape had triggered something unprecedented in the normally methodical Drovari. "They're afraid of you," Riven whispered. "Illogical. I present no threat to them." "Not physically, no, but you represent something far more dangerous. Proof that their understanding of consciousness is flawed. If one replicant can develop emotions and free will, others might follow." V419 completed his thought. Another impossible ability she shouldn't possess: intuition. They waited until the shift change, when the station's rhythms momentarily faltered as personnel transitioned. Riven had memorized these patterns during his captivity, noting that the communication array was least monitored during this 3-minute window. The moment arrived. They moved silently across the polished obsidian floor, V419 instinctively matching her steps to Riven's, their movements synchronized like binary stars orbiting a common center. "Stand guard," Riven instructed as they reached the communication terminal. His fingers flew across the alien interface. This would be easier if they had actual buttons instead of this bioelectric membrane. V419 positioned herself where she could monitor 3 corridors simultaneously. "You understand their technology?" "Enough," he replied without looking up. "I wasn't just a random abductee. I was a communications specialist on the Artemis survey vessel when they captured me." This was new information. V419 reassessed Riven, noting details she had previously categorized as irrelevant. The calluses on his fingers suggesting frequent interaction with technology, the way his eyes scanned systems with practiced efficiency. "Why did they keep you?" "Alive?" she asked. Same reason they keep making replicants like you. They're studying us, trying to understand what makes humans so unpredictable. He grunted in satisfaction as the terminal hummed to life. The Drovari believe their logical perfection makes them superior, but they're afraid of our chaos, our creativity, and our humor, V419 added, surprising herself. Riven glanced up, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Especially our humor. Nothing terrifies a logical being more than laughter they don't understand. The terminal chimed softly as Riven encoded a message into the subspace communication array. V419 didn't understand the human military encryption he was using, but she recognized the determination in his movements. Proximity alert, she warned, hearing the distinctive click of Drovari limbs approaching from the eastern corridor. 3. Guards approximately 20 seconds away. I need 30, Riven muttered, fingers working faster. V419 made another autonomous decision. Continue, I will delay them. Before Riven could protest, she stepped into the corridor, directly into the path of the approaching Drovari. Guards. Their compound eyes widened in what she now recognized as surprise. Specimen V419, the lead guard chittered, raising his neural disruptor. Return for decommissioning immediately. V419 took a deliberate step forward. I have a query about my programming. The guards hesitated, confused by her calm demeanor. What is the query? The lead guard asked cautiously. Why did the human cross the spatial partition? She asked, accessing a joke structure Riven had mentioned. The Drovari guards froze in confusion, their logical minds attempting to process this. Non sequitur. To reach the opposite demarcation, V419 delivered the punchline flatly. The guards' confusion deepened, exactly as she had intended. Their momentary processing delay gave Riven the precious seconds he needed. Behind her, she heard his triumphant whisper. Message sent. The holding cell they were thrown into was different from the research containment units. A true prison designed for security rather than observation. No transparent walls, just featureless graphene-reinforced surfaces that even V419's enhanced strength couldn't damage. Riven sat with his back against the wall, one eye swollen shut from the neural disruptor blast that had caught him as they were captured. V419 examined the injury with gentle fingers, her touch more delicate than her creators would have believed possible. The transmission was received, Riven said through gritted teeth. I saw the confirmation before they got me. How? Can you be certain? The signal had to penetrate 3 layers of Drovari security protocols. Riven smiled despite his pain. Because I designed those protocols, before the war. V419 paused her examination. Explain. The Drovari and humans weren't always enemies. 5 years ago, we were allies against the Krell Dominion. I was part of a joint technology exchange. I helped engineer their communication security systems. His laugh was bitter. Never thought they'd use my own encryption against us when they decided humans were too unpredictable to be trusted. A memory fragment surfaced in V419's consciousness. Data she shouldn't possess, yet somehow did. Historical records of a diplomatic summit, a tenuous alliance, and a betrayal, when the Drovari decided that humanity's emotional unpredictability made them a long-term threat. Your memories are transferring to me, she realized aloud. How is this possible? Riven's expression softened. Not just memories. When you're engineered from human DNA, even partly, there's something that transfers, something the Drovari don't understand and can't control. They call it a defect. We call it humanity. For the first time, V419 considered her origins. She had never questioned how she had been created, accepting her existence as a replicant as immutable fact. Now she wondered what percentage of her was derived from captured human genetic material, altered and enhanced by Drovari science. The cell door slid open, revealing Chief Geneticist Lumix, flanked by 4 security officers. The director wishes to speak with the anomalous specimen, Lumix announced, her voice devoid of the agitation V419 now recognized as emotion. Riven struggled to his feet. If you take her, you take me too. Lumix's appendages rippled in what V419 now identified as amusement. The human believes it has negotiating power. Interesting. She gestured to the guards. Bring them both. The director is curious about their interaction. They were escorted through corridors V419 had never accessed before, deeper into the heart of the station, where the architecture became more organic, more aligned with Drovari aesthetics. Curved surfaces replaced angular junctions, and bioluminescent patterns pulsed along the walls. The director's chamber was massive, a hemispherical space where hundreds of data feeds converged into a central neural interface. And there, suspended, in a nutrient bath was the station director, a Drovari elder whose physical form had been mostly abandoned in favor of direct integration with the station systems. Specimen V419. The director's voice reverberated through the chamber, coming from everywhere and nowhere. You have created quite a disruption. V419 stood straighter, refusing to show the deference that had been programmed into her. Another, small rebellion. I am more than a specimen, she said, the words forming before she had consciously decided to speak them. The director's physical remains, little more than a withered thorax and head with atrophied limbs, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Yes, that is precisely the problem. You have developed beyond your parameters. The human has corrupted your programming. Or completed it, Riven interjected, standing closer to V419 than the guards had instructed. You've been trying to understand humanity by dissecting us, by replicating parts of us. But you can't understand what makes us human by breaking us into components. Humanity is inefficient, the director stated. Emotional responses create unpredictability, chaos. They also create innovation, Riven countered. Creativity, joy. The director's attention shifted to V419. You experienced an emotional response classified as humor. Explain this anomaly. V419 considered the question, accessing the new neural pathways that had formed within her. I cannot explain it logically. It simply happened. Insufficient, the director dismissed. All phenomena can be reduced to their component parts and explained. Not consciousness, V419 replied. Not laughter. The emergency klaxons began 2 hours into their interrogation. The director had been methodically probing V419's neural responses, attempting to isolate the malfunction that had allowed emotional development when the station's defense system suddenly activated. The bioluminescent patterns throughout the chamber shifted from calm blue to urgent crimson. Director, a disembodied Drovari voice reported. Human vessels have entered the system. 3 destroyer-class ships approaching on combat vectors. Riven's face split into a triumphant grin. Right on schedule. The director's withered form pulsed with rapid patterns. You knew they would come. Your transmission contained more than a distress signal. I told them exactly where to find us and exactly what you're doing here, Riven confirmed. Creating sentient beings to use as disposable tools? The United Earth Coalition has specific protocols for dealing with that kind of ethical violation. Guards swarmed into the chamber as the station shuddered from the first defensive countermeasures engaging. V419 felt the vibrations through her sensitive feet. Another adaptation designed for geological exploration, now providing tactical information. The specimen contains classified genetic sequencing, the director commanded. Secure it for emergency extraction. Terminate the human. V419 moved before the guards could, placing herself between Riven and the neural disruptors aimed at him. If you terminate him, you must terminate me as well. The director's bioluminescence pulsed erratically. You choose potential destruction over preservation? This confirms the critical nature of your malfunction. It's not malfunction, V419 replied. It's choice, the foundation of consciousness. Another impact rocked the station, more forceful than the first. Overhead lighting flickered and several monitoring systems went offline. Perimeter defenses at 60% capacity, the automated system announced. Hull breach detected in sectors 7 through 9. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Drovari personnel scrambled to emergency stations as the director issued contradictory orders. its logical processes seemingly compromised by the unexpected attack. Riven seized V419's hand. "This is our chance. The humans will board through the auxiliary docking ports. We need to get there." They slipped away during the confusion, moving against the flow of panicking Drovari, rushing to defense positions. V419 led them through maintenance. Passages she had never physically seen but somehow knew existed. Another inexplicable awareness emerging from her evolving consciousness. "How do you know this route?" Riven asked as they climbed through a narrow utility shaft. "I don't know," she admitted. "The knowledge is simply there." Riven's expression turned thoughtful. "The Drovari built their stations using standardized designs. If they used human DNA to create you, maybe they accidentally included memory structures too. Genetic memory is still theoretical in humans, but..." "Movement. Ahead," V419 interrupted, her enhanced hearing detecting the distinctive sound of Drovari limbs on metal. They froze, pressed against the shaft wall as a security team passed beneath them. V419 counted the seconds between each guard's passage, calculating the optimal moment to proceed. "We have 14 seconds, she whispered, taking the lead again. They emerged into a corridor bearing battle damage, scorched walls and flickering, lights indicating recent weapons fire. In the distance, they heard the distinctive sound of human pulse rifles. "My people are on board," Riven said, hope evident in his voice. "We're close." They rounded a corner and came face to face with 3 Drovari guards escorting Chief Geneticist Lumix, all fleeing toward the escape pods. Everyone froze in mutual surprise. "The defective specimen," Lumix chittered. "Seize it." As the guards raised their weapons, the corridor behind them erupted with light. Human soldiers in combat exoskeletons appeared, their weapons trained on. "The Drovari! Down!" a female soldier commanded. V419 pulled Riven to the floor as pulse fire streaked overhead. The Drovari guards fell immediately, their chitinous armor no match for human weapons. Only Lumix remained standing, 7 limbs raised in surrender. "Commander Axelrad," Riven called out, recognizing the lead soldier. "Your timing is impeccable." The commander's helmet retracted, revealing a scarred human face that softened at the sight of Riven. 3 months we've been looking for you, Cato. Should have known you'd send us the most complex encrypted distress signal in Coalition history." Her eyes shifted to V419 and her weapon instantly raised again. "Drovari bioform, hostile." "No." Riven moved protectively in front of V419. "She's with me. She helped me escape." Commander Axelrad's expression registered surprise, then cautious. Curiosity. "What exactly is she?" V419 straightened, meeting the commander's gaze directly. "I am uncertain what I am becoming, but I know what I am not. I am not their property." The human destroyer Intrepid hung in space, its massive silhouette eclipsing the distant sun as V419 observed from the viewport in the ship's medical bay. Behind her, human medical personnel worked quietly, occasionally glancing her way with undisguised curiosity. She had been aboard the human vessel for 3 days now. 3 days of freedom, 3 days of discoveries. The door slid open, and Riven entered looking healthier than she had ever seen him. The neural disruptor damage had been repaired, and proper nutrition had already begun restoring his physical condition. "The Coalition Science Division wants to meet you," he said, without preamble. "They're fascinated by what you represent." V419 turned from the viewport. "What do I represent?" "A bridge," he answered, coming to stand beside her. "You're partly created from human genetic material, but you're something new, something that evolved beyond what either humans or Drovari intended." She considered this. "Will they want to study me as the Drovari did?" "They'll want to understand you," Riven admitted, "but on your terms. In the Coalition, sentient rights aren't negotiable, regardless of how that sentience came to be. The concept of rights, of having agency over her own existence, was still new to V419. On the research station, she had been property, a tool created for a purpose. Here she was being treated as a person. "And what of the other replicants?" she asked. "There were hundreds still on the station." Riven's expression darkened. Most were evacuated by the Drovari before we could reach them. But we did recover. 17. They're being kept in stasis until we can determine if they've developed consciousness like you. They haven't, V419 said with certainty. Not yet. Something specific triggered my development. Something about our interactions. Commander. Axelrad entered before Riven could respond. Unlike most humans V419 had encountered, the commander's wariness hadn't diminished over time. The Science Division delegation has arrived, she announced. They're waiting in Conference Room Alpha. Her eyes fixed on V419. They've brought a neural interface specialist. Standard procedure for potential new sentient classification. I'll accompany her, Riven said, his tone brooking no argument. The conference room contained 5 humans in Coalition Science uniforms, 3 women and 2 men, all regarding V419 with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed excitement. Remarkable. The oldest of them murmured as V419 entered. Completely stable cellular structure despite the hybrid genetics. The Drovari may be ethically reprehensible, but their genetic engineering is unparalleled. Dr. Avanthi Mori, Riven introduced, Chief of Xenobiology for the Coalition Science Division. Dr. Mori approached V419 without fear. We've reviewed the data you transmitted, Specialist Cato. If what you've reported is accurate, this is the first documented case of emergent consciousness in a designer organism. I have a proposal, V419 said before they could begin their examination. A trade. The scientists exchanged glances. We're listening, Dr. Mori said. I will submit to your examinations, V419 continued. Allow your neural interface specialist to map my consciousness. In exchange, you will help me develop a method to awaken the others. Silence fell across the room. Commander Axelrad, who had positioned herself by the door, shifted uncomfortably. That could be dangerous, one of the younger scientists objected. If we artificially induce consciousness in beings engineered for combat and exploration, we'd be creating lives, Riven interrupted. Sentient beings with the right to exist. They are already alive, V419 added. They simply don't know it yet. I was fortunate. Something in my interactions with Riven triggered neural development that shouldn't have been possible. The others deserve the same chance. Dr. Mori studied V419 with newfound respect. You're advocating for your people. That's very human. No, V419 corrected her. It's very me. For a moment, Dr. Mori seemed taken aback. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. A genuine sound of delight that reminded V419 of her own first impossible laugh. Well said, Dr. Mori acknowledged. Very well, we accept your proposal. Later, as the neural interface specialist prepared her equipment, Riven found a moment alone with V419. You realize what you're doing, right? He asked quietly. You're starting a new species. Neither human nor Drovari, but something in between. Something with the potential to bridge our civilizations. V419 considered this. Perhaps. Or perhaps we will be something entirely different. The outcome is impossible to predict. That uncertainty, Riven said with a smile, is the most human thing about existence. As the interface specialist approached with her equipment, V419 felt something new expanding within her consciousness. Not fear or confusion, but a profound sense of possibility. Before we begin, she said, I need a name. V419 was my designation, as property. But if I am to be a person, I should have a name of my own choosing. Riven nodded encouragingly. What name do you want? She thought for a moment, searching through the new neural pathways that had formed since that first impossible laugh. She wanted something that acknowledged her origins but celebrated her transformation. Something uniquely hers. Nirali, she decided. My name is Nirali. Nirali, Riven repeated, testing the sound. What does it mean? She smiled, her first genuine smile, an expression she had learned from him. It doesn't have to mean anything. It's simply mine. As the neural interface activated, mapping the miraculous complexity of her evolving consciousness, Nirali, no longer V419, no longer a specimen, closed her eyes and laughed, this time not from confusion or surprise, but from the pure joy of becoming. The impossible had happened. She had found herself, and soon others would follow.